and they just started playing these like really heavy riffs. And you know, at the time, as far as drumming, you know, Jesse Smith was, you know, probably one of the most, he stood out more than anybody, I guess, at the time. And you know, he started playing and they started playing, and Sean Jonas let out this like 30-second belt, and I was just kind of in awe at the time.
It was just something completely different, and it was, the vocals were emotional, the lyrics were, they're very heartfelt lyrics.
If you have a need, if you have a desire in your heart, this is your time to lift up your hands and praise God and let Him know. Let Him know what your hurts, about your pain, about your frustration. This world is not to please you. It's time to praise God, glorify Him for what is worth it, nothing less. Let's give Him praise.
We were just annihilated with how good they were. So we didn't realize how far behind we were. So that was my first encounter with the original lineup of Zao.
Tooth and Nail Records was it, you know, at the moment as far as being a Christian band.
We liked a lot of the bands that were on there. It was new and it was different.
So we were busting our butts just trying to get noticed by Tooth and Nail. And
I don't think Sean, Mick, or Roy know this, but I made a tape before we even did All Else Failed with my voice speaking to Brandon Ebel with songs we'd recorded that were going to be on All Else Failed, and then a handwritten letter and some photos, and sent it to him. I never heard anything back or whatever. But that was like right when Brandon released Wish for Eden's first record, Tooth and Nail, 0001.
I remember we sent demos to Tooth and Nail quite a few times, and they just kind of, they really weren't into us, and so we had to go with Steadfast Records for our first album to get noticed. I remember at Cornerstone 96, we gave our demo, or not our demo, but our full CD to the A&R person at Tooth and Nail Records, Bill Powers.
We were on tour. I had heard somebody was up at the Tooth and Nail offices, and he had caught wind, you know, that we had sold, 5,000 albums with no ads, and we're touring by ourselves, fully a machine, touring in a brand new Toyota Tercel, pulling a trailer.
I remember Jesse Smith and Brandon talked a good bit back and forth on the phone, and those were exciting times. And then I remember they invited us out to Seattle, and we sat down with them at a Mongolian barbecue, and just kind of went over, contracts and negotiations a little bit. And really, there was no negotiation. It was like, you tell us what we can do to get on your label, and we'll do it. And we signed one of the most awful contracts ever. It was like 5 albums.
I just remember looking at this thing, and man, it was thick, and I didn't understand a word in it. And I'm sharp enough that I can read and retain what it says, but it was just in all this lawyerly language. And we looked it over and didn't want to pay money to have a lawyer look at it, and we just said, what the heck, we're not going to get rich off of it. So we all signed it and sent it back.
But I mean, that's just what you get when you're young and dumb and excited. But Tooth and Nail Records was a great move for us. They gave us a lot of exposure and just what we needed to get bigger. So yeah, it was a good move.
Those guys were like so stoked. I was just kind of like, I had this, by that point I had started getting a little bit of a different vision for the band. It was definitely like fully Christ-centered still, but that was for the seed of the Jesse Smith seed and Zao. That was when I knew no matter what happened with anybody else that I wasn't going to stop. We got signed to Tooth and Nail, and very shortly after went in to do Splinter Shards.
We would never show up to a practice and say, here's a song, I want you guys to learn it. It would always be, here's a guitar riff, or Jesse would say, here's some drums I'm working on, or Mick would say, here's some bass, and we would like integrate.
A lot of people were pissed that we put the same songs on there and stuff, different renditions and stuff, but we wanted a Tooth and Nail record out quick because of what was going on with like the scene, the hardcore scene, especially like the Christian scene that was starting to grow. And I mean, for a long time, that scene only did exist on the West Coast. That was a West Coast thing. I mean, focused, playing shows to 2,000 people. I mean, that was not happening everywhere else. Christian hardcore bands, primarily, if they were playing together, were playing youth groups.
First encounter with Zao was when Focal Point was in the studio in LA, in Burbank, doing our first and only record. A few months before that, we had got All Else Failed CD and totally stoked on it. Like, whoa, what's this band? Where are they from? Like, you know, just totally stoked on the sound. We were in the studio doing the record, and this show was coming up, this tour, and it was Zao, Strong Arm, Bloodshed, Shai Hulud. We tried to find out who was putting this show on. Like, can we get on that? We had all our gear down there. We were like practiced up and everything. We were kind of like a, you know, a newer Tooth and Nail at the time band. And we were like, we've got to get on this show. Those were like, you know, some of our favorite bands that were on the label and stuff like that. We'd never played with any of them. So we were like, we've got to get on that show. So we found out who was promoting it, and luckily enough, we got on the show. What I remember the most about was meeting the guys in Zao, specifically how crazy of a drummer that Jesse was and how fun he was to watch, and how much power Sean Jonas had when he sang, and how like kind of effortless he was when he screamed, and like how long he could hold notes, and just standing there, like basically looking like he was talking to the microphone.
After Splinter, I started letting the dudes in the band know, like, look, this church stuff is cool, you know, but we already go to church and we already love the Lord, and if you want to minister and stuff, like, you know, obviously on that level, you know, you have to be playing to secular audiences just on a level, period, you know.
I think we went through periods of time where all of us were best friends with other people in the band. I can't speak for the other guys, but I know there were times when I was closer to Sean than anyone else, and that probably comprised the majority of the time. I was closer to Sean. I was always very close to Mick. Both of them have a very open personality. Even now, I cannot see them or talk to them for months, and when I see them, we're cool, right? There was a long period of time, months, where I was probably closer to Jesse than I was anyone else.
There was no breakdown in like communication between me and Roy and Sean, but I started kind of feeling like, you know, I am a Christian. You know, our parents go to work every day, you know, and they are computer techs, they are plumbers, they are teachers. You know, I don't see people in my life that I've respected and just have lived lives of like just true moral glory and achieved real happiness be like, hey, Ryan, nice to meet you. I'm Susie, and I'm a Christian teacher. And I started getting really annoyed with that, you know? I was like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. It started to bother me, like, okay, you're Roy, you're Mick, you're Sean, everyone knows you're a Christian. That is what you are. Like, what are we as a band? Where are we musically? And I wouldn't necessarily call it like any bitterness or weirdness yet, but kind of just, it started to bother me.